everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, coming to you from my neighbor's yard. Chris and Prudy are some dear friends of mine who also like to vegetable garden, and they do it a little different than me. They have raised beds. But in today's video, I wanted to give the contrast. So this behind me is Prudy's garden, and we got this top dressed, and like she doesn't really have a big weed problem. And she has a different strategy than her husband on how to maintain the weeds. And I'm on Team Prudy in here. So Chris, get in here. All right, Chris likes to use this long handled tool that I'll show you in a minute. And he has a taller raised bed that another pitfall with raised beds is they can get filled with fire ants really easily in the summer. So they're often like infested, but then they're also difficult to keep watered because of the height. They drain faster. So this is the tool that Chris likes to use. And you can see what he's doing. He's turning over these weed seed patches. But then he's planning on leaving them in there. Hang on, I'm gonna turn the video around.
My name is Chris, and this is the way I weed. I take the top off and scrape it over and let it dry for a day so I can shake it all out. So, and then I put my left hand in and grab a weed and pull it out and shake it all about. And then I put my right hand in and I pull it out and shake it all about.
But what happens knowing tomorrow we have a huge rain system coming, so it's going to get super wet, and then it's going to take a few days to dry out before you can come here, and all of these start shedding seeds again, and you just have you've reintroduced the seed bank in the space so that you'll have the same weed coverage next year.
I'm so disgusted by that possibility. I think I'm going to change my behavior immediately.
I think we should do an experiment, Chris. And I think that you should do half of it the way you're doing it, and let me have half of it cleared out, and let's compare.
Okay, good idea.
Don't you think that's a fair
That's a great idea.
approach?
Yeah, it's very good.
Okay,
like
well, we'll get busy doing that.
Okay.
It did not take me long. Thank you. And we were just laughing that I'm basically the equivalent of a cat. I just like to scoot around the bed and weed it clean. And, you know, like there's still a few little bits here and there, but I'm not really sure there's a comparison.
Oh my gosh. No, and that's finished?
Well, yes, except now, because I'm an overachiever, I have one more thing I want to do. All right, so I was just telling Chris, because I like cover crops, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go try and find some crimson clover or some other plant that is appropriate for planting now, a cool season crop.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally something that fixes nitrogen, that can cover the ground, and that will help prevent additional weed seeds from establishing, at least on my half.
And it will look pretty.
It will look pretty. There's no questioning that. And the nice thing with crimson clover, and I've done this before, but planting like a month later. So we'll see how it does in mid-February. But it was still actively growing even in the summer when I was planting peppers and tomatoes. So you can still use it as a cover crop, ground cover, over the summer. So it's very practical. Remember, open space just invites some sort of plant to take over, and generally...
What was the name of that cover crop again?
Crimson clover.
Crimson clover.
You know, there's
Crimson
a song.
Clover, yeah. Like a shirt.
It is, exactly.
Yeah.
So let me give you a close-up of what the existing weeds look like. You're going to recognize a lot of these. These are like the notorious plants for the cool season. And I think that you're best to get them out. That's been my advice lately.
Oh, I get them out, but you get them out sooner.
He gets them out, but then they reseed the same way. So you're not breaking the cycle.
Yes, you're right. I need the cover crop.
He needs the cover crop, but you've got to get rid of the vegetative plants before they go to seed. And some of these are already starting to flower and set seed. So this is everybody's warning. You have to, like, if you want to conquer winter weeds and not have them every single year, you've got to get them out when they're vegetative so that you don't have another generation of seeds laying in wait in your garden beds.
Propagating.
Exactly. Okay, let's take a close-up of all these problem plants that you don't want to have in your vegetable garden. Say that again.
Yeah, I left them there for you.
Just so I could ID them, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, they're all tilled up, but they're not gonna die in this state because they still have, you know, massive root balls. And like I said, we're getting heavy rain tomorrow. But this is obviously chickweed, but there's some bitter cress right here. This is what's specifically flowering and going to seed. So you really want to get rid of that now before the seeds start dropping. You know, there's Poa annua. This isn't really that big of a deal. It is easy to pull out. As I touch them, I'm gonna pull them out because I can't help myself. Let's see. See, I think the problem with this method is that it's like they're all covering layers of weeds, so there's still stuff that's rooted in that's just covered up, and that doesn't, they won't smother and die. I wish they would, but they don't. Okay, here is henbit, very common. This is, I mean, it's like, we call it clover, but it's, what is this, oxalis? Here, this plant, which is, I think, a veronica. There is an opium poppy here. I might go ahead and, these don't really transplant well, but I'm gonna give it a shot. See if I can't keep it together. I'm gonna plant it on my side. Oh, I just undid the root ball, so it probably won't transplant. Poppies are very particular because they have a taproot. So in general, I don't think this hoeing method is the solution for long-term reduction of weeds. So that's why I recommend spending some time and getting it cleaned out. And then cover cropping it if you're not gonna plant it immediately. I went through my reserves and I didn't have any nitrogen fixers at all, summer or winter, so I have some seeds to order. But I did find buckwheat, carrots, Daikon radish, because I always have Daikon radish, and Johnny's spring wheat. And I figured I can do something that I don't really ever do, which is plant in rows, because it's a raised bed, and that's just like kind of what it's meant for. So instead of doing one mass ground cover crop, I'm gonna do 4 stripes. And I think the color texture combination will be really pretty. And by the time it's the season for actually planting warm season vegetables, all these cool season things should be done. Yeah, it's later than I usually do, but this is a super fun experiment to see how these plants will perform being sown directly in a raised bed in the middle of February here in Zone 7, Central North Carolina. So in the middle we have carrots, and then we move into spring wheat, and then buckwheat, and then over here Daikon radish. And I'm just gonna take a hard rake and kind of just gently rake over all of this, and then tomorrow's rain will help stimulate it growing. What do you think?
I truly stand defeated. But like I was telling Bree, I started life out with nothing, and I got most of it left. So I definitely see see this magnificent side to Bree. She knows what she's talking about. Bree grows.
I'm excited to see how this evolves.
Yes.
And I'm also excited to have the opportunity to grow in a raised bed. Like, we were just saying advantages, disadvantages of raised beds, and I think that raking or using long-handled tools in an elevated bed is actually harder because you have to keep them up higher. But from a perspective of not having to bend over, it's great. But you've experienced this. In the summer, it dries out and you get terrible fire ants. Like, would you make more raised beds? Or would you build them out of something different?
I had better wood. Like,
Yeah.
I understand somebody has, I think they look like 6x6 cedar timbers maybe.
And these are what, landscape timbers?
And they were treated and I painted them, and it's probably been 10 or 12 years. And they've seen their day.
You've had these a decade.
Yeah.
It's actually not all bad.
Oh no.
You know, now the lumber is so expensive. Box beds might not be
Yeah.
as affordable. Like, the way I garden is a lot cheaper up front because I'm not creating infrastructure. But I appreciate that I'm borrowing their square footage now.
Very much, and thank you so much for what you did. And more importantly, you have taught us about the raised beds. You know, importantly, the wood rots and fire ants have been an issue, or a horrible time with fire ants.
Well, especially like in the fall when we get a rain and then the fire ants erupt out of the ground.
Yeah, I could tell you a personal story, but I won't.
They can get you in private areas.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's the truth.
Yes.
I got bit
your
last
eyeballs?
month when we were still mild over the holidays.
Dang.
They were still active in January.
Yeah.
So,
They crawl right up your legs.
yes.
Do the nasty.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I'm excited to see how this progresses over the next month or so. And I know you're going to be able to grow fabulous summer crops in here either way. And I will be sure to add this to my weekly garden tours every Sunday. So be sure to subscribe to Bree the Plant Lady so that you get regular updates. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.